Previously on More Than the Score. That's my baby!
He shot my dad, and now he's dead.
Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo.
What am I gonna do with all this free time now that I'm rich and stuff?
I'll take care of that.
All right, hey, welcome to episode 2 of More Than the Score podcast.
Oh yeah.
I'm one of your hosts. My name is Brian, and that over there in the corner is your other host, and his name is Matt.
Oh, me? You're talking to me?
I'm talking to you. I stuck you in the corner for this episode because you missed out and you left me hanging, and I had to do the first interview alone.
I missed out. I didn't want to miss out, Lucy, because I just wanted to talk about how you just outright all of us, and you're half the age of some people on the team. Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're a kid. Go have fun and stuff. You're writing, doing all this work, you're a senior writer. I'm an associate writer. I'm so much older than you. Why?
You know, but she's really good, and she does write a ton. But, good for her. Maybe this is how she has fun. I have fun doing this. So, who's the judge? 10 years from now, she's going to have a kick-ass job somewhere doing whatever she wants. So
she's gonna be running IGN and Giant Bomb and GameSpot and Polygon all at the same time.
Probably. I could see it. And she'll still be a senior writer with Middle of Nowhere Gaming, because that's who we are. We are Hmong, which is a bad word where she's from, I found out this week.
Apparently.
I had no idea. I'm not going to reveal what it means, but it's a bad word. So that was interesting. But, we didn't talk about that. But we did talk about some cool things, like The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D. That's a cool game.
Fun fact, I have a friend who used to think it was pronounced Majora's Mask.
Majora's?
Majora.
Yeah, well, maybe in some parts of the world it is. Who knows? Bad localization somewhere that happened. And then we had Benji come on, and Benji talked about the Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate.
Don't forget the Ultimate.
Well, it's not just Monster Hunter 4. It's obviously the Ultimate.
And then,
who was the last one? I already forgot.
Rounding out the episode is associate writer Adam Leonard with Evolve, and that
Adam
Leonardo, the best of the Ninja Turtles, arguably.
I could give a take there. Michelangelo might have been the best, but who's to say? Anyway, yeah, Evolve, that was a good conversation. I didn't realize how much information there could be without a single player and whatnot, but he had a lot to say about Evolve, which was impressive. Everybody had a lot to say about their games, which is good. We have a good review staff here. So this just keeps on rolling. Last week, if you missed out, you should go back and listen to that one. We had Courtney and Harry and Jake, and they talked about some games. That I'm trying to remember now. Grim Fandango. Jake talked about Grim Fandango. Harry talked about Citizens of Earth. And Courtney talked about Dying Light. Did I get them all?
Yep,
I hit them all.
Check.
Woo! Woo!
3 for 3.
That's how Ric Flair feels after he does everything.
Woo! Oh, no. Flashbacks.
Oh, yes. Flashbacks to the future, because Ric Flair is going to come back as Ric Flair 2.0 one of these days.
He's going to be the next Terminator.
Yeah. And I'm talking about in real life. I'm not talking about a movie. He's going to be the real Terminator. Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Yeah.
And they're
going to turn him into a cyborg. And then he's going to come from the future, and then he's going to meet present-day Ric Flair, and then they're going to fuse together, and, we are all in for a can of whoop-ass.
He's going to woo us all to death.
Woo! Woo!
So, well, if you want to keep hearing me woo, there may or may not be a couple woos in this episode. Spoiler alert, there are no more woos in this episode. But you should still listen. Matt, you should especially listen since you missed out on the Lucy conversation.
I will.
Yeah, and you'll enjoy that, and then you can relive the other two interviews that we did ourselves. So why don't you kick us off here into this great neverland of interviews?
All right, well, first up we have Lucy, which I will not be here for, but still listen to it anyways, because Brian and Lucy did a great job, I'm sure.
Yes, we did. Here we go. Hey, Lucy, welcome to the More Than the Score podcast. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, thanks.
Awesome, awesome. You're here to talk about the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D, yeah?
Yeah.
And this game is on the 3DS, 3DS XL, new 3DS, and new 3DS XL, correct?
And the 2DS.
And the 2DS. Okay, there you go. So I missed one. And which console did you play on?
I played on the original 3DS and the new 3DS XL.
Okay, cool. So you played both. Nice.
Yeah.
Did you notice any difference in the experience?
Because what happens is that, because this is like a launch title for the new 3DS, they included some extra stuff. So there's a C-stick, and you can control the camera freely, which is a really big improvement on just using Z-targeting, because the camera's always locked then, and it feels a bit jolty compared to just controlling it manually.
Okay. And so also I'd like to add, people might have noticed the accent. You're our first international interview on the podcast.
Yeah,
And so you're joining us, you're from the UK, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. That is fantastic. I think most of us are Americans, and then we have a couple Canadians or something, but I like your accent more than the American accent, so this will be fun.
Oh, thank you.
Unfortunately, Matt couldn't be here for this interview, so it's just going to be me and you. But I have some questions.
Okay.
So this game, this is a remake. It came out originally in 2000 on the N64 and later on the GameCube and Wii.
Yeah.
So did you play the original version?
I did not. I was going to a year ago, but then everyone was talking about Majora's Mask 3D and how it was going to come out, so I was like, I may as well wait. I did play Ocarina of Time, the original, which, although it's different, it uses the exact same engine, and so I sort of knew what the old one was like before playing this, but...
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, those are all classic games. The N64 is a great time for Zelda. But I'm really interested. Majora's Mask is very different from the other Legend of Zelda games. There's no Zelda. How do you have a Legend of Zelda game with no Zelda?
I don't really know, if I'm honest, but I really don't. They decided, well, because Majora's Mask, the reason it came about was that the N64 had no games, and so the head of Nintendo at the time was like, okay, Enuma, we need this Zelda game in 1 year, so you're going to reuse the Ocarina of Time engine, it's going to be a different game, and we want this done in a year. They couldn't actually do it in a year, it took them 2, but... That's why they had such a quick turnaround, and that's why all the same NPCs are there, and that's probably why it was so different, because they didn't want to be labeled as sort of like a sports game franchise where it's the same thing every year.
Right.
And they wanted to make it different.
And so what really digs in and makes a difference in Majora's Mask as opposed to the other Legend of Zelda games?
Well, as I mentioned in my review, there are only 4 dungeons, which... I don't think you really notice how important it is when you start to play it, because most Zelda games, especially 3D ones, they tend to have around like 7, 8, 9, 10, because they tend to all follow this formula of you have to get 3 things, and there's like, oh yeah, then you will defeat Ganon, and then you never defeat Ganon. It's like, oh yeah, we need to get 7 things now, and that's how they tend to follow, but this one only has 4, and so you end up finishing and you're like, oh, what do I do now?
But it sounded like you enjoyed only having 4 in this game, according to your review, right?
I did, because I am more of a 2D Zelda fan. My favorite Zelda is A Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds, and to me 3D Zelda dungeons have never been as good as the 2D ones, because they just don't feel as precise, and honestly, the puzzles in them tend to be more based around kill all the enemies in the room, or they tend to be more combat-based instead of working out with your items.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And then, so the plot of this game, since you're not saving a princess and you're not defeating Ganon, you're saving the land of Termina, and you have 3 days to do it. And tell me more about the plot. Fill in the blanks there.
Okay, so Majora's Mask is a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time, and it happens after the ending of Ocarina of Time. And so I'll try not to spoil that. But then you're Link, and you're riding on Epona, and then you're riding through the woods, and then you get lost because you're searching for Navi, who ditches you, which isn't that much of a bad thing. And so you run across the Skull Kid, and the Skull Kid turns you into Deku Scrub. And so then you go chasing after him, and you end up in Termina, and then, and then what you find out is you go to the Skull Kid, he's like, and you try and get turned back, and then he sets the moon down, and you have 3 days, and you repeat the same 3 days over and over again to try and save the world of Termina.
And like, how different do those days feel as you progress through the game? I mean, you're not living the same day over and over. This isn't Groundhog Day, you know.
Yeah.
And so, what's the difference between like the first day you play, or the first time you play through the 3 days, as opposed to the next time you play the 3 days, and the next time you play the 3 days?
It's more really what you're doing, because in the 3 days everything is technically the same. The characters do exactly the same thing, and so you have a postman, and he'll walk past the same spot at like 3 a.m. on the first day, and that will still happen. But you'll be visiting different parts of the world, and you might be going to the Great Bay Area in one 3 day cycle, and going to the Great Bay Temple. And another one, you might be exploring Clock Town.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And another thing that you really hammered on in your review was the side quests. And excuse the pun here, but it sounds like you're over the moon about the side quests.
The side quests are really what makes this game so special. Is that when you have all this, when you don't have these dungeons, and it's almost as if, what do you do now? And you explore the side quests, and it's almost as if it's like another side to the game which you wouldn't notice. And it's not just this sort of like plot of where you have to save the world. It's not your typical Zelda. It's a much more personal thing, and you see these individual characters, and you see as they progress over the 3 days, and because of it, Majora's Mask is some of the most memorable like side quests in video game history. I mean, in so much that when we were trying to get a review copy for this game, and we ended up not getting it because of the time we applied, but there's a side quest in it which is called the Anju and Cafe, I think, is side quest, and it is so special and so well known that when Nintendo were giving out their what you can't say in your embargo, that was one of the things they specified.
Oh wow!
It's like, yeah, it's like they are really special.
Yeah, and how many of those side quests are there?
There are probably about 5, 6 sort of longer ones which take place over the 3 days, and there are, I'd say, probably about 20 to 30 sort of smaller ones which are more your normal side quest objectives. But by completing a variety of them, you get more masks, and then that allows you to explore more, and it's a cycle.
And so these masks that you get, they give you special abilities?
Yeah, you have your 3, your sort of normal. You have like your 3 which you gain through the story, which is your Deku, your Goron, and your Zora, which allows you to swim, allows you to like roll everywhere, and allows you to fly a bit and shoot bubbles. But then you have all these other masks, which I don't think you should miss. Like, there's this really cool one which I really enjoy called the Blast Mask, and it's essentially it's bomb on your face, and if you press B with it, then it will just like blow up like a bomb, and you take damage from it. But it's like all these sort of weird, wacky masks that you can get throughout the game.
Right. Did you have a favorite mask other than that bomb?
I'd probably say I really enjoyed the Goron mask. It's either that as like one of the 3 main ones, or the bunny hood, because it's quite famous. Because the thing with the bunny hood is it allows you to run, which sounds really stupid. But if you've played Majora's Mask with the bunny hood and you've played it without the bunny hood, you will see the huge difference of not having to roll all the time to try and gain speed.
Right. And you also mentioned time manipulation and this like speeding up double time or going to a certain
Yeah.
hour. That's really important for playing through this and not, missing things.
Yeah. No, it's because, as I mentioned earlier, these NPCs, they go in this certain time, and you need to be at a specific time at a specific place, otherwise you will miss that side quest. If you miss that postman coming past at 3 p.m. at Clock Town East, you will miss that side quest, and you've got to go back in time, and then you've got to do it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you have a favorite moment in this game? Without, spoilers, obviously, but...
It would definitely be that Kanju and Sephi. I don't want to get their names wrong. Yeah, it's the Anduin Cafe quest, and it's just the ending of that. It's actually quite emotional. It sounds weird because you wouldn't imagine a side quest to be your most memorable moment of the game, but it's like one of those things with Majora's Mask that you should really expect the unexpected, and just go in and with no expectations, and don't think of your normal Zelda formula, and
Sure.
you'll come out very happy.
Very nice. Very nice. So, in summation, if you had to give your 20-second review of Majora's Mask 3D, what would you say?
Buy it. That you might be worried about the lack of dungeons in there. Don't. The side quests definitely make up for it.
Very nice. Well, Lucy, this has been great. I'm glad that you've joined our little podcast family here, and we look forward to hearing from you with more games in the future.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thanks, Lucy.
Bye.
Hey, Benji. Welcome to More Than the Score. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I am excellent. We've got Matt here for this one. Matt, what's up?
Hey guys, sorry.
Yeah, you missed the Lucy interview. That was too bad.
I'll look forward to listening to it.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it. It was great. It might have been better since you were gone, but what do I know? Just kidding. I'm glad that you're here, Matt. Glad that you're here, Benji. You're here to talk about Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate on the Nintendo 3DS.
Correct.
And I've never played Monster Hunter, any of those games. They're big in Japan. They're getting bigger in North America. So
Right.
give me the overview. What's Monster Hunter all about?
Okay, so basically, you're kind of thrown into this world, and people are like, oh, you're the new hunter, right? So let me show you how to do this. And they say, okay, here's a weapon, and here's a map. So go out here and slay these monsters for me. It starts off simple. They usually have you with doing some fetch quests. So go out here and gather some mushrooms, or carve some meat off this certain tame dinosaur. Because really the monsters are more like dinosaurs or dragons. So you'll see things that are kind of like a T-Rex or like a Velociraptor, things like that. And so as you go, you find different monsters in different areas, and you hunt them, take them down. Sometimes you're required to trap them instead of kill them. And then you can gather resources from all over the world that you're roaming around in, or from the monsters themselves. You can take meat or bones, hides, things like that to improve your weapons and armor. And you just kind of work your way through it that way, and the monsters just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So.
And now I haven't played any of the games in the series either, but I have played similar like Monster Hunter type games with God's Eater and Freedom Wars. Would you recommend the game for someone who's played that but never played a Monster Hunter game?
I think Monster Hunter can appeal to just about anybody. It is difficult, and that might turn some people off to it, but if you take the time to level up your weapons and your armor, and figure out the weak points of the monsters, anybody can get through it, I think, with enough practice. So it's a ton of fun, because there's dozens of quests, and in the new one you can play online or with local Wi-Fi, so play with friends or with strangers around the world. It's a lot of fun.
Right, and you talked about not only like playing online, but also leveling up and leveling up weapons. Can you talk more about the battle system in the game?
Sure. So it's not like you would expect, like in an RPG, where you run into a monster and then everything freezes and you take turns hitting each other. If you run into a monster, it's going to attack you, and so you have to know how to dodge and what attacks are going to affect it. At the beginning of the game, all they really give you is a hunting knife, so you have to either buy or forge some other weapon. One of my favorites is the great sword because it's humongous, and so when you first start, the sword's kind of weak, but you can take. I'm trying to remember what you have to use for the great sword specifically, but specific hides of monsters and bones. You can use them to level up your weapons, so it makes the sword stronger. You can make your armor more resistant, and so once you've leveled up far enough, then you can go take on these bigger monsters. And when you've got improved defense, improved offense, then you can take out these gigantic dinosaurs.
And so, and what's the variety of the enemies in this, as far as how many monsters are there? And you mentioned there are 4 elemental attributes for those?
At least 4. I can't remember right off, but there's like electric, fire, ice, and at least one other that I can't think of right off the top of my head. But so some of these monsters will use elemental attacks. So if you're fighting against like a lava type monster, for example, then you'll want something that's resistant to fire, because if you have something that's like meant for ice, then you're going to get destroyed real quick. So as you go through, you'll want to get different types of armor, because the elemental aspect can either help or hurt you, depending on if you use it correctly.
And so, is there a difficulty? I mean, you've mentioned multiple times about how difficult the game is, but is there like a set? Can you put it on like super easy and just breeze through this, or is it one of those things where it says, "Hey, this is the game," and there's no settings, and just go for it? It's gonna be hard.
There's just the one setting, so you can't make it like super easy or super hard. When you first start out, it's quite easy, even for somebody who hasn't played, because you're just trying to go get these little creatures, and they don't take much to kill, and so it starts out easy. The quests have stars, so the first quests are 1-star quests, and they're really easy. And as you move up, it moves up to 2 and 3. Most people could probably get through 2-star quests really without much of a problem at all. And then starting in 3, then it starts to get pretty difficult and just goes up from there.
And in your review, you mentioned your cat warrior partner people,
right.
The palicos, and I love that little picture of them. That was great. Can you tell us about the palicos?
Yeah, so you start with a palico. When you first start up the game, you choose your name and kind of your character's color, skin, hair, styles, all that, and then you can do the same for your palico. And so you can make them. I made mine like a cat I used to have when I was a kid, with the same name and everything. And so, but instead of just being a regular cat, he's got this armor and like this lance that he can stab things with, and so it's just kind of a lot of fun.
Are you telling me that you didn't give your cat armor and a lance back in the day?
Well, I tried, but cardboard doesn't hold up real well against monsters. But so these palicos, have pretty legit weapons. So plus they can also help you as you're fighting monsters. Sometimes they will replenish your health as you're trying to stave off these giant dinosaur dragon type things.
Right. So it sounds like the game is inherently difficult, but it gives you plenty of ways to lessen the difficulty just by knowing what you're doing.
And
exactly,
also
and just experimenting.
armored cats.
Yeah.
What was that, Matt?
Also by giving you armored cats.
Yeah, I mean, armored cats are the scariest motherfuckers in the world, so that's awesome. Is there a general, like, what's the plot like there? I mean, is this just a random assortment of quests with a loose storyline?
There is a story to it. When you first start the game, you're actually riding on this sort of a barge, like a boat, with this captain who's kind of roaming around looking for a team of explorers. And right from the get-go, it kind of throws you into this giant monster fight. And you may or may not see this giant monster again later in the game. But it kind of gives you an idea of, all these people need help with quests. And it is kind of a loose storyline, I would say. But different people will come up and say, hey, I tried to get home and there's all these monsters in my way. Go slay them and then I can get home. So there's a lot of that kind of thing.
Nice. Matt, do you have more questions?
Yeah, I also wanted to know, did you play this on the new 3DS or the old one?
I played it on the old one. I don't have a new one yet, but...
How did the controls feel with that without having the camera stick?
I thought it worked, considering the control limitations, I guess you could say. I thought it worked quite well, honestly, because you can use the L button to move the camera behind you, kind of like in some of the Zelda games, things like that. So I thought it worked pretty well, all things considered. And then if you've got the Circle Pad Pro, then you can use the right stick on that to rotate the camera as well. So.
Fun. This is a game that, like, I give some. Well, before I continue and have this like word vomit come out, how much time did you spend with the game?
I've had it about a week, and I've used basically all my free time. I don't know exactly how many hours, but probably something like 20 hours or more so far, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, I saw you mention that, and that's good to have that much depth to it. But what I was gonna say is that if I had a 3DS, it seems like the kind of game that would be great to play for 10 minutes here, or 30 minutes there, 6 hours here, what have you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So awesome. Well, it's too bad I don't have a 3DS, so I can't play. Matt, do you have a 3DS?
I do have a 3DS.
Well, you should play this game, it seems.
I have so many games to play because of this show.
That pretty much every game we've mentioned so far has been a game that we'd want to play. But Benji, so if you had to give your 60-second wrap up here, what would you say about Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate?
Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is awesome, and really it's a game that just about anybody would enjoy. It's really, really hard, but if you take the time to level everything up, then it's a ton of fun. There's all kinds of environments. It looks amazing. Tons of creatures to kill and to hunt. Lots of stuff to gather, lots of weapons to make. It's just almost endless, really, how much fun you can have with it, especially if you have friends with the game. So, highly recommended.
Sounds like a kick-ass game. Well, Benji, unless you have anything else to add.
That's all I got.
All right. It's been great. Thank you for sharing your detailed knowledge on Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you, Benji.
See ya.
And now we have Adam on the show. Adam, you reviewed Evolve, which is out now on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And it seemed like you liked the game quite a bit. Can you tell us about the world that it takes place in?
Yeah, Evolve takes place on, quite honestly, kind of like a generic sci-fi planet called Sheer. And Sheer is this planet located in what's called the far arm of space. And basically, it's kind of your typical kind of frontier, sci-fi frontier type planet. Humans have gone out to the far reaches of space and have kind of colonized this planet and are kind of struggling to, make the planet their own. But they run into conflict when kind of like the wildlife sort of revolts against the human colonization, most notably in the form of these kind of mega monsters that are attacking the colonists, and that therein kind of lies the conflict. Is a kind of a group of soldiers of fortune are kind of hired to come in and try to defeat these monsters, and that's kind of the big plot of Evolve, is the struggle between these kind of group of hunters that are hired to take out the monsters and these kind of mega monsters that inhabit the planet Sheer.
Before we go on, I just want to say it looks like we have a theme coming out of this week with this and Monster Hunter. It's all about killing monsters in video games. Who knew that was such a classic?
So I suppose in this one varies a little bit from Monster Hunter, but this one you can actually, on the other hand, even the score by playing the monster and get to do some damage to the hunters as well.
That's true. So in this case, Evolve had this 4-on-1 aspect. One player plays the monster and the other 4 are playing these hunters. How was that, the experience? Because, in video games, we are the hunters, we're the people taking down the bad guys. But what was it like being the monster in this situation?
Well, it's really tense at the beginning because big key to being successful as a monster is you've got to survive those first initial minutes of the game, because basically as a monster, your objective is to try to dodge out the hunting party as long as possible, and while you're doing that, trying to like basically feed on the local wildlife, and by doing so, you become stronger and more powerful, and the goal is to kind of hit your max level, which is level 3. And once you're like a level 3 monster, you've got like, the maximum number of abilities. And more importantly, then you gain the ability to be strong enough to destroy the planet's generator, which is a way you could essentially instantly win the game if you can defeat that generator. Like I said, the first few moments are definitely harrowing because you're powerful as a monster, but you don't feel kind of overpowered, and you are in a lot of trouble if you get caught in the first couple of minutes by the hunting party, because they might just stand a chance to get you before you could do any real damage. But it really becomes a lot of fun if you can get a good start on the hunting party and gain a couple levels, because then you really do feel like you're a badass. I mean, you can easily take down any one of these hunters, and I think once the monster gets powered up, generally speaking, I think the monster has the advantage, and from what I've seen, more often than not, the monster wins the game.
Yeah, and what are the different scenarios that either side could win the game?
In just like the basic hunt, in the basic hunt mode, it's basically, as the hunters, it's pretty straightforward. You got to find the monster, you got to kill the monster. As the monster, it's either you manage to kill the entire hunting party, or you get to level 3, you get to the generator, you destroy the generator, game ends.
Interesting. And when you were playing, how many matches do you think you played when you were reviewing this game?
If I had to guess, maybe in the area of 100 matches. I mean, I spent a good week just, that was what I played every night. I just went on and played match after match after match.
Sure. And in all those matches, did it seem like there was... You said that the monster usually wins, but is there a certain way that the monster usually wins? Or when the hunters did win, was there a certain way that they usually won?
Like, the way that the hunters usually won, I felt, is basically kind of what I stated at the beginning, is I think if they lucked out and they found the monster early on before it got a chance to really get some kill under its belt and gain a level or two, that's when you had the best shot, because the monster doesn't have a lot of life at that point. It might have some armor, but not necessarily a lot of it. If you're gonna have a chance, you got to find it early, and you gotta strike hard, because otherwise, like I said, once the monster gets bigger, it kind of quickly gets out of control.
And then obviously the 4v1 concept, that's pretty new in games right now. Was there any balancing issues with that, since it's still a generally new concept?
Here's the biggest, I think, I don't want to call it a flaw, but I think that Turtle Rock clearly designed the hunter aspect to be a group of 4 people who most likely know each other, all are on headsets together, and are strategizing together. Problem is, at least from my kind of perspective, is I didn't know a lot of other people who got Evolve. I mean, it's partially because we're kind of at that awkward growing period between generations where a lot of people still haven't made that jump to the next gen consoles. They're still kind of holding on, like, well, I have a couple more PS3 or 360 games I could be playing before I just throw down that money. So I kind of had issue finding other people to play with. So my main experience was just jumping on their server and being randomly partied with people, and then more often than not, I'd wind up playing with people that I didn't know, weren't on headsets, had no interest in communicating with anybody. They just wanted to play the game, and I found that that's really the monster's advantage. If you're not communicating, if you're not working together, you don't really stand a whole lot of chance against the monster. I will say, as like the hunting party, the best experience I had is a few times I found people who were on the headset, because that really changes the game for you as a hunter, because when you have people that you're actively working with, you're talking to them, you're like strategizing, you're giving each other tips, and it really kind of showcases the game, exactly how that mode's supposed to be played.
Right, and obviously we've talked a lot about multiplayer in the game, because like last year, Titanfall, it was mainly a multiplayer-focused game. Does Evolve have any single-player, like anything for someone who's there for single-player, and does that hurt the game?
Now, to be fair to Evolve, you can play pretty much anything you can multiplayer, single-player, whether it be as a monster or as a hunting party, with No, actually, the bots that you play with aren't bad, and you also have the ability to kind of hot swap between the different hunting party members. And in doing so, you can really unlock anything in the game in single player mode that you can in multiplayer mode. And there's also something that is loosely called a campaign mode. It's actually called evacuation mode. And it's basically it's not really like a story or anything like that. It's just like a set of, I think it's like 5 matches you play in a row, and then the outcome of each match affects the next match after it. What I think is really lacking, and I think what really would have taken Evolve to the next level, much like I felt like when I played Titanfall, is I think both games are really, really cool multiplayer games, and they have really awesome gameplay concepts that make the game, even if you're not a multiplayer person, you still want to play the game because you're kind of really in love with the concept of what they're trying to do. I think what really would have brought Evolve to, like kind of like 9, that 9.0 and above tiers, if they actually came up with some kind of really meaningful single kind of player campaign that takes like the basic concepts of the gameplay of Evolve and put it in a storyline concept, one that perhaps fleshes out the world, flashes out the characters, and gives you just a little bit more reason to care about the events of the game. I think that's what would have taken it to the next level.
Yeah, and with these characters that you're talking about, you said you can unlock most of the stuff through single player. So what kind of things do you unlock in this game, and what kind of classes of players do you have in this 4-on-1 aspect?
So as far as a hunting party goes, there are four classes you play as. You play as Assault, and Assault's kind of a big brutish guy that tends to be the responsible for dealing the damage. Pretty much all of their stuff is either does direct damage or increases the damage that they're doing. I think they're definitely probably the most straightforward class to play as because what you're supposed to do is pretty clear. There's a hunter class. The hunter is basically responsible for kind of tracking and ultimately trapping the monster. I think the biggest thing that the hunter does is they have the ability, when you find the monster, they can drop down this kind of temporary dome that traps the monster into kind of a localized area, thus forcing it to actually fight with you instead of trying to flee. I think as a beginner, I found that for people who are just starting, I think the initial hunter is probably the easiest character in some ways to play as, simply because each character has like 4 abilities, and the starting hunting character has basically 3 abilities and a tracking dog that you don't actually have to do anything with. It just kind of naturally tracks, and so it's kind of easy for a beginner because really then you only have 3 actual abilities you need to worry about using, and so I kind of found that's probably a pretty good place to start. Then beyond that, you have support class, which support class does a little bit of everything. They have some very heavy damage-inducing abilities. The starter support guy has like the ability to call in essentially a missile strike on the monster, which can do an incredible amount of damage if you catch him in the right place. And they also have some team aiding abilities. Most notably, every single support guy has the ability to kind of cloak the entire team for a set amount of time if you need to like get away or heal up your party. And then lastly, you have the medic, which is pretty straightforward. The medic keeps everybody healed. They have a couple of additional abilities that they can kind of use to weaken the monster or slow the monster. But their general responsibility is to, like I said, keep everybody healed. And then within the classes, then you have a total of 3 characters within each class. You start with 1 in each class, and then by playing as those classes and kind of hitting certain benchmarks, you can then unlock the other 2 characters.
Okay. Interesting. And so when you're setting up your hunting party, is it always set that there has to be 1 of each of those 4, or could you have like 4 hunters or 4 assault? I imagine that you have to have 1 of each 4, right?
Yeah, it's very static. You need to have 1 of each 4, and I think really it's probably not unlike maybe like a raid in an MMORPG. It's kind of important that you have 1 of each because each one has something they bring to the table that's kind of essential to the hunt. Right.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean. I was watching a Let's Play or something of people playing Evolve. I think it was on Giant Bomb, and they were talking about throwing that dome. It's always a hit or miss thing, like when you first started out, that they said that was one of the things that they had to adjust to, because it's like the monster would always be like right at the edge, and then the dome might just miss it, and then you're screwed, or But I thought that was probably the coolest thing just from watching, because I haven't played it, but just from watching and seeing that the idea of trapping a monster in this massive dome that shrinks the map significantly. I thought that was a really cool thing to kind of force that confrontation.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly important and timely ability, especially because I think that being able to throw that dome down at the right time, it really can make the difference between the hunting party winning or losing. Because if you can catch that monster at the right time, you can win. But even if you just let him get away that one time, that might be enough for him to to hit that level and then all of a sudden become something you just can't deal with anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Matt, do you have any more questions about Evolve?
Just one last question. Was it more fun playing as a hunter or a monster?
For me, I thought it was better. For me, I actually enjoyed playing as a hunter more. I'm sure that would even be increased even more if I had a group of people to play with. It just kind of felt like a little more tense because you were dealing with something kind of infinitely more powerful than you, and so when you were in combat, it felt really, really intense and kind of really hurried, and there's nothing quite as exhilarating in that game being like the last party member alive. Because if your party gets wiped, but as long as one person stays alive after a certain amount of time, like a dropship will come and deliver like all of your dead your dead allies so that you guys can go at it again. And I think probably among the funnest moments I had is being like the last person alive and like desperately trying to dodge the monster just long enough that the dropship comes and you've got another shot.
Right, and then to wrap up here, one, would you recommend this game? And then subnote to that, would you recommend this game to someone who typically enjoys more single-player experiences?
Yes, I would definitely recommend this game, especially if you got a group of friends who are all looking to play this. Then I absolutely, without question, would recommend it. If you're somebody that's mainly a single-player gamer, I would recommend it. I would maybe wait until you could get it for a decent price, because I think if you are kind of into that single-player experience and that single-player campaign, I think you're going to find a decent snack here, but I don't know if you're going to find a satisfying meal.
Right, and so Evolve sounds like a pretty cool game. Maybe one that I'll have to wait to buy since I'm more into single-player games. So it'll be the first one that I won't have to get after an interview.
Yeah, we broke the streak, damn it.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show. And Brian, have anything to say?
I just wanted to say that was a great analogy. It's like a snack, but it's not a satisfying meal. Yeah, I really like that. Would you buy it in a $5 box at Taco Bell, or would you pay $20 for it at a nice restaurant? That sounds like this is the $5 box from Taco Bell. Am I right?
I could maybe go for the $10 Denny's special, but
that's fair. As long as it comes with free coffee.
Right, exactly.
So Evolve now comes with free coffee at Denny's.
Now with coffee.
All right. Well, yeah, this is great, Adam. Thank you for all the info.
Hey, it was a pleasure, gentlemen.
All right, take care, Adam.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
See you. Well, that was a roller coaster ride of knowledge.
Yes, it was.
And a great
Woo!
Woo! We
God.
lied when we said there were no more woos.
Hope you stuck around to find out.
But just to recap, you and Lucy had a great conversation about Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D. Benji stopped by to talk about Monster Hunter for Ultimate. And Adam was here to talk about Evolve. And so next week, we're going to kick off the show with me, talking about Dragon Ball Xenoverse. And that'll be fun.
I'm looking forward to that. It'll be the first host-on-host action here. I'll get to ask you many questions about Dragon Balls.
And I'll have many answers about Dragon Balls. I know all about those.
I know you do, buddy.
For that. And then also, our good friend Courtney will be back talking about The Order 1886.
Yeah, how appropriate is it that our editor-in-chief of Middle to Nowhere Gaming becomes our first two-time appearance on More Than the Score?
It ends.
I look forward to it.
Well, that's not the end, but.
What are we? What are we going out as a trilogy? Is this it?
We'll see.
Calling it quits.
We'll see how it goes.
That's fair. So this is coming out on a Monday, and all your typical hopefully, fingers crossed, on all your podcast services and on YouTube and that kind of stuff. We'll be out on Mondays now. We started the first week on Friday, but that was a special little thing because we didn't know what the fuck was going on. But now Mondays are our permanent home, so you can catch episode 3 that Matt just described next Monday. We'll be doing that this week. And in the meantime, you can email us at contact.mong, M-O-N-G, at gmail.com. You can look at our Mong twits and tweets and twats at...
Don't do that. Don't look at those.
Yeah, don't look at those. Just go to our Twitter account, at mong.com, spelled out D-O-T-C-O-M. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/mongnetwork. We're on Facebook, Tumblr, and Instagram as Mong, or it's easier to search for Middle of Nowhere Gaming, I have found. You can just go straight to our website, middleofnowheregaming.com, for all the latest editorials, news, reviews, and now a multitude of podcasts and live streams. Matt, before we go, let's talk about all this live stream action that we're doing on Twitch these days.
We have a substantial amount of Twitch content now. I'm pretty sure you can find it at Mong Plays on Twitch. And it seems like everyone is streaming at all times on that channel. So if you care about watching people play video games and our awesome personalities here at Middle of Nowhere Gaming, check that out.
Yeah, because I mean, Matt and I are basically the most boring people on staff. So if you want to really dig in and see some fun shit, you should go over to Twitch and watch those guys play some video games. Right now, I know there are a lot of people playing The Order. That'll probably be popular for the rest of the week, but then, you know, it's so short that it'll be over by then. So, but yeah, all throughout the week, we'll be having streams and stuff, so you pop in, check it out. I know we did like 6 hours in a row on Friday, so that was pretty impressive. But now let's finish this off strong.
And then our twiddle. Did I say that last episode? I feel like I said twiddle.
I don't know. Maybe you did. I will go back and check. This could be a running thing. Who knows?
It could. The twiddle handles for this episode. Lucy is at BlueFox2000, but with O's instead of zeros.
So 2000.
Yes. Benji, his is easy. It's just Benjamin Luthi. Luthi spelled L-U-T-H-I. And then Adams is at fanboy_Adam. And then myself _M Batson, and Brian at El Padreoso?
El Padreoso, the Papa Bear himself.
Papa
That is
Bear.
me. Still have to throw in the translator if you can't spell it. If you do want to spell it, it's ELPADREOSO. It's also in our YouTube description for this video, so you can go there. But you should follow Matt and not me, because Matt needs the followers.
You should follow Brian and not me.
You should follow all of us, and you should see our twats on Twitter with Mong and everybody, and follow the whole staff, because we all talk about video games a lot, and I sometimes talk about other stuff. And Matt, I don't know what you tweet about, because I don't really look that often.
Sometimes I just tweet about life, man. You know, where are we going? What are we? Who are
Just dropping knowledge bombs. That's what you do.
We could all just be a turtle's dream out in space.
I think that's where we finish it. Yeah. All right. This has been episode 2 of More Than the Score podcast. Matt, so long.
So long. And so long to you, listeners.